Is it working? Should be working. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it's on. I'm scared. I'm not an Insta Live person. Is this working? It didn't work. Hello. Hi, friend.
Hello.
What's popping?
What is popping indeed? Where can I put you? There we go.
Okay, what? Yeah, I'm just making sure everything's set. Okay, so it is a live fundraiser. I've never done this before, so I'm very much like, oh, okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Much better now. I think when, everything first hit, it wasn't easy to deal with, especially with, having this kind of feeling where it's just like, why am I used to this? If that makes
Mm,
sense. So, yeah, the first few days was quite hard and emotional for me, but I kind of spent the last 2 days actually just really thinking, okay, how best can I, channel how I'm feeling.
mm.
So yeah, I think it's really helped, getting together the StudyTube law and putting our video together. Oh my God, did you just get a first donation? Oh my God, great stuff.
Yay! Thank you so
Um,
much.
Thank you guys. Let's keep it going. Let's keep doing the good work, man. But yeah, so I just spent the last 2 days really channeling how I'm feeling
Mm,
and how best, put it into motion and actually get things going. Because it's very easy to, tweet Black Lives Matter, but then it's just like, okay, cool. What are you doing to ensure that in your spaces, in your communities, that, you're valuing these Black lives and you're really actually pushing that agenda?
yeah, especially today, I think has highlighted this idea of what performative activism even is. I think that
Yeah.
even the term performative activism is only something that I've really become aware of as
Hmm.
a phrase over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Um, and what that actually means, and whether each time you share something, are you doing it because you want to show that, are you doing it to show off and to make sure people don't think that you have controversial views, or is it because you genuinely believe every word that you are sharing and you've actually read every word that you're sharing as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, because it's like this is not a trend. This is not a moment to win. I'm a good person. Points like this is not that time. This is not the time or the place. And it's very much like listen. It's not necessarily a space for everyone to speak up as well. That's one thing I've kind of learned because it's been very sad, like seeing some very horrible takes on social media, on Twitter. And yeah, this is not a thing about, your virtue or, the time to say, oh, my thoughts and prayers are. If
Hmm.
you don't actively care, we're also not here to make you care. That's one thing I kind of like had to teach myself. Because at first I really wanted to, tackle everyone and be like, oh, why isn't it that? But then I realized that at the end of the day, if you can, maybe watch that video, see these deaths, and genuinely not feel upset, I can't make you. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like, I can't give you that feeling. Like, the anger in me, like me, nearly crying, I can't make you feel the way I feel. So
Hmm.
if you're not ready to, even with a lack of experience in, racism, if you're not ready to meet us in empathy, then unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to make you do so.
Absolutely. And it's also not the job of people who are facing this oppression to educate those who don't face it on a daily
Yeah.
basis. Just because there's been a highly publicized event, this does happen routinely,
Yeah.
systematically, institutionally.
Hmm.
And I think, it's your job, it's all of our jobs
Hmm.
to research and think. And, this isn't something where, oh yeah, that Instagram post is quite aesthetically pleasing and says Black Lives Matter, so I'm going to post that on my feed. It's like,
Yeah.
did you read every word and did you take them in and did it make you really, really think?
Hmm.
Um, I think, yeah, it's definitely an important discussion, and I think it's important to capitalize on the opportunity to
Hmm.
bring it to everyone's news feeds for sure.
Oh yeah,
But
also, sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, guys, for anyone that can't donate or maybe is struggling to donate or even like, you currently can't afford it, we're not here to force you. That's one thing. There's so many different things you can do. I know I'm going to put on my Instagram story later. I can't remember right now, but there was a YouTuber that basically just did a whole video of like Blackout and like, just like, do you have it? Okay, please
I've got
share
it
it.
running.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Actually send me the link. Let me get it running in the background.
There we go. So it's
Um,
on, the channel is Zoe Amira.
Zoe, that's it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and there's
literally you can just watch that, and like the AdSense basically just keeps going, and like I'm just gonna play it while I'm sleeping. Oh, shut up. I don't want to hear you right now.
we want the adverts, but we don't want to hear
We don't
them.
hear it all right
We want
now.
them
But
running.
yeah, so if you don't like, if you can't literally financially contribute right now, that's perfectly fine. As students as well, we understand that, you know, you might not always have money. Listen, we've been there. So literally just put that video on in the background while you're doing stuff, and you're actively helping us. And
Yeah.
that's a brilliant thing.
And having said that, we currently have £348. That is just
That's actually
so generous and kind.
amazing. And we've
Thank
not
you.
even been here. Guys, this is amazing. Thank you everyone so much. But I think I really just wanted to like have this space where you know, one, we're actually doing something, and two, we're actually having these uncomfortable conversations. Because you know, we both have a large student following as well. And I think, you know, these are things we should tackle from an early age, because a lot of like, you know, older racist people are not really going to unlearn these things because they've grown up with these ideologies, and this
Yeah.
mindset is very much stuck. And, you
Entrenched, for
know,
sure.
whilst you're still impressionable and whilst you're still young and very much open-minded, you know, this is the time, this is the space. And I think with everything that's going on with the death of George Floyd and everything, I think it's good. I don't know how to really phrase this, but I feel like if we weren't in quarantine, we weren't dealing with a pandemic, this would have, you know, been so over so quickly. But
Yeah.
I think the pandemic has kind of like helped it stay a topic, because everyone is refreshing their Twitter, everyone is on their phone because no one's really got anything to do. So I think, yeah, this is the time to have these conversations, because enough is really enough. Let's be honest with it.
And we have the time right now to, there's no excuse to say I didn't have the time to read that one article that would have informed me. If you can't plead ignorance at this stage. It's
definitely not.
The ignorance is actually unacceptable at this point. I think we all need to be doing better. Even I would say that over the past year, for sure, I've tried to read as much as I can, but there's still so much more, so many nuances, so many things that I don't yet understand, that I think it's so important to be open-minded. And also, if someone tells you that something that you're doing isn't productive or isn't helpful to this movement, then learn from it. And rather than going on the defensive and being like, no, but I mean my best, you know, I'm trying my best. That's fine, but learn from it, especially from the people who you are trying to help. Just listen to them, you know.
100%. And I think that's the interesting thing when I think we made some points of things that we wanted to discuss, so it's not just kind of like an unstructured conversation. And I think this is actually a good point to go into like our first point, which was like white privilege. What is it? How does one dismantle it? And I think one thing with privilege in general is that you're not really no one would really want to step down from a position that, you know, has benefited them all their life. And that is the thing with white privilege. A lot of times it's having to actually unlearn that, you know, this system that has benefited me in some way, shape or form is hurting people around me, is hurting a specific community, it's leading to, you know, deaths. And yeah, so really and truly, it's like, okay, cool. What would we really call white privilege? If you want to go first.
To me, the white privilege that I have received and benefited from, it's the things that I don't even think about. It's not the stuff that I can see, it's the stuff that I can't. It's the fact that I have never, when I've booked to go on holiday, I've never had to Google how safe it was for people with the same skin color that I have to go to that location. I've never had to think, should I raise my voice here, or will I be seen as aggressive, and will that be linked to my race and people's perceptions of that race? I think it's those things that I've never had to consider, which have benefited me. And I didn't personally set those institutions up, but that doesn't mean I don't benefit from them and shouldn't, you know, recognize that. I saw actually that James Corden spoke this morning. I guess it was last night in America, but this morning for us. And one thing that he said that really stuck with me is that you can't expect Black people to dismantle a system that they never set up in the first place. It's, you know, so I think that's a core point here really with what white privilege is. It's the things that you never have had to think about.
Yeah. I think for me, the easiest way I find explaining it is that white privilege doesn't mean your life doesn't face any difficulties. White
Mhm.
privilege doesn't mean, you're not going through things. Like these are literally just sociological factors. So
Yeah.
for example, your gender might, make your life slightly harder. For women, for example, what else do we have? There's age, there's religion, there's different things, but race is a fundamental one of those things. And as you said, there's the whole your parents telling you at like an age of like 12, or make sure you're in the right place at the right time. You don't want to be endangered, or if the police comes, put your head down and don't look into their eyes, because these are such uncomfortable conversations that my parents were having with me at such a young age. And yeah, so I think the best way to put it is like, white people benefiting from an institution, a system, and just like a lifestyle that even they are not necessarily aware of, like things such as your surname being able to just get you into the interview, whilst some employers might look at my surname and just be like, not really a fan of that. So yeah, it's literally things like that. And then I think when you're having this conversation, it's like, okay, cool, we've acknowledged what white privilege is, but how can one actively be an ally?
Mm, for sure. For me, it was about recognizing that I would be heard when I emailed my vice chancellor of my
Yeah.
university to say that I felt like racism was a problem at the university. And perhaps if they are aware that the wider community is recognizing this as an issue, they do listen more. And so you can use it to benefit everyone, and to, I think there's a difficult one to negotiate in terms of speaking out, but not speaking over Black
Yes.
voices, or
Yes.
speaking over the voices of those who are actually facing that oppression. And that's
Hmm.
something that I think about very consciously as well, is at what point am I overtaking,
Yeah.
rather than elevating the voices of the people who actually matter.
And I think sometimes in like the good-hearted and like pure-spirited attempt at trying to speak on these issues, it can sometimes be a thing where it becomes white-centered. And I think like Jade spoke about it in her video best, like how do I actively talk about this without making it about myself?
Mm-hmm.
And I think to be an ally best is like, one, what are you generally surrounded by? Because sometimes it's very easy to be in these echo chambers where you've kind of glorified life and everything works smoothly for you, but then you look around and you realize, I don't have any friends of any different backgrounds, like no Black friend, no Asian friend, no Latino friend. And it's just like that in itself is a problem, because you're not hearing stories from other people. Like everyone around you has this same experience as you. So I think the best way to be an ally is, one, listen to the voices around you. That's the easiest thing. And when we say listen, it's not just a thing of like hearing and then trying to rebuttal anyone else's experience. Like if you haven't experienced it, I like to say just meet them with empathy. Like,
Mm.
I understand this is bad, and that's it. Don't try and say yeah, but there's no, like, this is not the time for yeah butting anything. And I think that's like the first step, like hearing the stories around you, and then also like really doing the work on yourself. Like it's uncomfortable, the whole
Mm.
topic of racism is uncomfortable, and it's not just uncomfortable for white people, it's uncomfortable for the people going through it too. So I think the sad way in which some Black people have become comfortable in that discomfort is really the same energy that should be met. Like become comfortable with the uncomfortable topic of dealing with racism, and have the uncomfortable conversations when at, I don't know, Christmas dinner, your Uncle Phil might have said something that's like very much racist, and having to like say, I don't want to ruin the Christmas spirit, but Uncle Phil, that one wasn't it.
That ain't it.
That ain't it, bro. Like, absolutely not. And I think like educating yourself in the best way possible. Like, so many people have shared so many resources over the last like 3 4 days. Oh, whoa, we've hit 600.
Oh my
Oh wow,
gosh.
that's great. Okay, yeah, we're doing well. We're doing well, guys. This is
We
amazing.
should also talk about the specific charity that we are fundraising for. I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to take it away.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. So basically, we've decided to raise the money today for the Bail Project. So basically, me and Jack were like talking since yesterday, like, okay, cool, we do want to do this, but like, there's so many organizations to support. How best do we pick one? And basically, the Bail Project is a national American organization. So I think that was one thing that swayed both me and Jack to pick it, because it's not just Minneapolis, it's not just Georgia, it's not just, one Minnesota, it's literally aiming for everyone in America. And it basically helps with bailing out people that have been incarcerated unjustly, and people that, their economic situation just doesn't allow them to pay for their own bail. And especially given President Trump's address last night, it might be that a lot of protesters, even peaceful protesters, will be arrested unjustly, and like the Bail Project will basically use these funds that we're raising today, 665 right now, crazy, would basically use these funds to basically help these people out, because we're going through a very tough time right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at the kind of FAQs on their website, and it's sort of, they really focus on people who are from low income families who can't bail themselves out, who don't have the resources to get themselves out of these situations when they are legally innocent. And a crazy statistic. So they started in the Bronx in New York City, and their statistics show that 90% of the people that they represent end up being totally innocent. Like, they don't even get any charge at all. So that just shows you that so many people are unfairly arrested, or it is crazy. And especially at this time when they've been facilitated by certain figures who have authority in America, who are stoking the flame, and people are scared, and
very much so.
If there's anything we can do to just get them out of their situations, then that's so important.
Yeah, and I think with both of us, like, having the platform we have, it was very much like, what can we really do, and how much can we really do to support this? And it's fun doing the Instagram story and stuff, but it's like, let's be active, with our activism. And I think this is just like one way to do much. I know I'm working on a few things. I'm sure you probably are too, on like, what more we can really do. And I think one thing that everyone should take away from like the conversations of the last week, 700.
Whoa.
Vibe check.
It's going to make such a difference, honestly.
Honestly, like, this is basically getting innocent people out of jail, and I think that's like an important thing. But as I was saying, what was I saying? Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. The goal from this whole conversation the last week isn't, for people to become colorblind and I don't see color, because I think inherently I have a problem with that statement, because you might say you don't see color, but color exists. Color exists, and unfortunately, the color of people's skin makes their life harder in certain countries. And acknowledging this and understanding that, sometimes, you don't listen to the one black friend in your friendship group. It's understanding that, her experiences and her life's story is tied, unfortunately, to the color of her skin. And yes, this has some amazing things, things she can bring to the table, but then also knowing when to, say these jokes have been taken too far. Knowing when to say, oh wait, how do we actively be anti-racist? I think that's the best way to put it. Like, it's not enough to not be racist. I'm not as bad as the cops. We don't want to hear that. Do you get? Like, it's actively taking a stance that, listen, I'm against racism, and I will use whatever I have and whatever I can to help the people around me feel safer, and like give them an environment where they can thrive, where they can exist freely and feel like, my voice is being heard.
Definitely. I think that we have this opportunity right now to show solidarity, to make it normal to be actively anti-racist, because I do think it's so easy to let these things sort of not be at the forefront of your brain every single day, but for some people it impacts everything that they do. And that's what this movement is about. It's not about your black square on Instagram, it's about the article that you made someone else who has never come across this concept of anti-racism before, then read and is now also posting something and telling their parents at home, or you know, Uncle Phil at Christmas dinner mentioned something that you don't agree with, and it might give them the facts to back up why they think it's wrong. So yeah, I think we're working together to try and educate ourselves, educate the people around us, and be better than we have been before.
Yeah. Do you want to take some questions from the question tag thing?
Yes, I can't see them, so I think you need to.
Or do I have to tap?
111 donations as well. Thank you
wow,
so
thank
much.
you everyone, and we've raised so much in such a short space of time. This is amazing. But anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep the conversation going.
Yes, that's the thing. Make it uncomfortable. Like we want to talk about those things that aren't pleasant to talk about. You know.
You don't mind being political as well, do you?
No, it's all good.
So, okay, let's take this question. Oh, okay, so I can't show the question apparently, but I can read it out.
Okay.
So I think that'll work. How to deal with people who defend all lives matter, even though you have explained to them why it is not appropriate.
Oh man, it's the thing is, I think fundamentally, on a human level, I understand how your brain could come to the conclusion of all lives matter, right? Like we understand the concept of equality, and so I think that the term all lives matter is basically meant to represent equality. But what you totally annihilate from that conversation when you dismiss it as all lives matter is that no one ever questioned whether white lives did. So that's not the conversation. It goes without saying that your life matters and has always mattered. And so it's kind of about elevating people to being at that position. And we have to highlight that Black Lives Matter because other people suggest that they don't.
I think that's the funny thing. For me, it's very much like you can only say all lives matter when all lives actually do.
Yes.
And I think one thing I've realized is this statement is very much coming from like the right wing side of things, and it's like all lives matter. But it's just like I thought my analogy in my video was good, but then I saw a TikTok that nearly threw me under the bus, and I said this is what I should have said. And basically the guy was saying, imagine if, for example, like your dad passed away, God forbid, but imagine like, you know, we're at the funeral and then I barge in, God forbid, and I'm like, oh yeah, but my dad matters too. Whilst, you know, my dad is perfectly healthy, perfectly fine, perfectly sat at home, drinking his coffee, watching a football match. But we're focusing on the death and the passing and the struggles of your dad's life. And I've now barged into the funeral, making it about me.
Yeah.
When you then actively think of that, you're just like, right. And for me, it's just simple. All lives can't matter unless you're actually actively allowing all lives to matter. And right now, unfortunately, Black people's lives are not seen as something that matters. Like, you know, historically and scientifically, Black people are seen as animals. Like, you know, the tests were being made on us, and Black people were being skinned. Then let's not forget about slavery, then segregation. So it's like with the history inherent of the race, until we're actually valuing Black lives, not for, you know, their contributions to the entertainment industry, to music and to art, but unless we're actively valuing Black lives for what they are, all lives just don't matter. And I think that's the best way to explain it. And for some people, as much as you want to educate them, you need to understand that at the end of the day, your space needs to be protected too. And there's only so much talking and so much educating and so much arguing you can do until you just have to say, listen, I have tried, and now it's literally just on you. You're ignorant.
Yeah. My response to that is always to try and firstly reason with them. And we do sometimes have to resort to these analogies about there's 5 children and one's been stung by a bee. You need to support that child. There's 5 houses, one's on fire. You're not going to use your hose pipe on all of them. Like, we do have to resort to these childlike analogies because these people are resorting to ridiculous claims, and so you have to fight that. And go to their level and explain it. But I also think it's really important to always back it up with further reading that they can do by experts or by people who have had time to really, really consider nuances and, you know, think about the really nitty gritty stuff. And then it's been published and shared and widely received. And so I always try to go in first with like the analogy that I hope they'll understand, and then back it up with kind of some sort of further reading that they can do in their own time. I think
one thing I found myself cautious of, which I had to like correct myself, because, you know, we're not afraid to check ourselves when need be over here, is that recognize the person you're speaking to before you give them resources.
Yeah.
Because one thing I did was, you know, I just had my list of, you know, readings to understand that, you know, Black Lives Matter, and I was just airdropping that to anyone that wanted it. But then I realized that, you know, some readings, some articles, some journals are extremely complex in their language and, you know, how they, like, sometimes, you know, you're better off telling someone to watch these Netflix documentaries rather than, you know, read these articles. So I think, definitely start off with your analogy. If they're not getting that, then try and recognize, okay, I'm not going to tell, like, you know, a 16-year-old to now read, you know, a modern take on race relations from medieval German times. Like, it's not going to make sense. And a lot of things I'm not going to go in. But, like, you know, maybe a podcast might be a good idea. So I think one thing, well, shout out to the StudyTube Project, by the way. I was going to say one thing that I think we did really well was putting together, like, a very good list of resources in the description box of our video. And, you can just go from there. You know, we've got music, podcasts, articles, books, and videos, and just so much more that, you know, you can draw from and use to teach people. Can you please save this live stream? I'll try to keep it up.
Hello, is that £1,000? That knocks my little socks off.
That is crazy.
They're gone.
We've you might be stimulating toe fetishes here, Jack. So
if it gets more money, I'm fine with that.
But thank you guys so much. 1K, that's crazy, and that's I can't say anything but thank you, really.
The generosity is unbelievable. Thank you.
Let's take a few more questions, but I'll save the live. Next question. Wow, there are a lot. Whoa, okay. Okay, what are your thoughts on the IG blackout?
There's intentions behind everything, right? And I understand first and foremost how it comes from a good place. It comes from a place of like wanting to be a part of this movement and maybe not knowing how, especially I think, especially given the job that we do or the position we have in terms of having an audience. When I share things, I kind of feel like I am speaking to someone, whereas I know that some people do feel like if they're posting things on their story, they don't want to seem, I guess, preachy, or that they're trying to, you know, teach everyone. And I get that it can be intimidating. The issue is when you start to overpower the movement with a trend, and you're doing it just because you want to fit in and you don't want other people to question why you didn't do it. I think it's more important for people to know exactly why you did do it by sharing a petition or a donation page or personally donating, rather than just sharing it because everyone else on your timeline did. I've seen a lot of people that I know who have said nothing up until now suddenly have that black tile with a hashtag but no information otherwise. And the reality is that each of us can reach someone who has not had access to this information before. You never know who might read it, and it could change their mind. It could be that one thing that triggered them to read that article, donate to this cause. You'd really never know. So I understand the intent, but I don't necessarily know whether it's the most efficient way of doing it. What do you think?
For me, I was very baffed because I think I didn't know this was like a planned thing. So like I was quite taken by surprise, and I don't think I went to bed around like 5 a.m. because I was working on something.
As always,
I'll tell you after. You know me. Between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. he's on the roll. And then so I woke up around like 11, and I just went on to Instagram, and I was just seeing like black. Then I saw like a few tweets where it's like, oh, make sure you take out the hashtag Black Lives Matter and use the Blackout Tuesday hashtag. And I was just like, wait, what's going on here? Like, I just went to sleep, I woke up and chaos. So I called one of my friends and I was just like, I know you go to bed at like 9 or 10 and you wake up on time. What happened? And she explained it to me and I saw the intention, you know, awareness, like everyone wants to raise it, which is great. But for me, I think it was very evident when I started seeing a few people that have been extremely quiet, Black people or white people as well. And it was just like the hashtag and the post. And in my head, I'm thinking, this is more than just, oh, my friends are doing it, I should too. Like, I think in this moment, I saw a post that I think justifies it perfectly. In this moment, everyone's an influencer. This is not about the sponsorships or the discount codes or, you know, the swipe up to subscribe. Even if you only have 200 followers, you putting it on your story or you putting it on your page and actually, like, you know, sharing, because this is not just a moment of everyone to be away from social media. The information should still keep pouring out. The donation links, the petitions, and the articles and like the readings, things should still be coming out. So just doing a hashtag and saying, oh, my thoughts and prayers isn't helping anything. So I do think like the plan behind the blackout was great, but you can't always control every single person that would execute your plan.
Yeah.
So I think that's why, you know, we've seen a bit of like backlash to it. But I do think like, yeah, it's not a bad thing. I think that's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, you're so right by saying that you can't control how other people will interpret your plan and how you imagined it in your head.
Yeah.
I saw that, you know, the hashtag Blackout Tuesday tag had more mentions or uses than the hashtag Black Lives Matter tag at one point, which is, you know, that gets to a point where you do question whether people were just taking that blank photo and being like, well, I've done my bit.
Yeah, that's enough activism for today.
Yeah.
Peace out. Yeah, and definitely. But yeah, I think we've touched on that one pretty well, to be honest. Let's take a few more questions, guys. These are a lot. Jesus, I feel like I'm in an exam. Okay, cool. Oh, to be fair, I think let's take this one just because it's part of the points we actually agreed on. Do you feel racism is very present in your day-to-day life? So microaggressions and everyday racism.
For me, I don't think that I see it on a day-to-day basis in terms of, like, probably I'm not aware of some of the things that are going on around me that actually, for other people, they really think about. And that's what we were saying. That is white privilege, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, this is what is important is about educating myself on which of these things do I take for granted? Which of these things have I never, ever considered could be an institution that I'm benefiting from?
Yeah.
I think I've thought a lot about it in terms of university, and maybe the reason that I'm not seeing much of this activity at my university is because there aren't that many Black people at my university. There are 204 Black people out of 12,400 people. So maybe the reason that I'm sheltered from it is because those people don't feel like they can even apply to the university that I go to. It's not necessarily that the university isn't available to them. I saw someone tweeted me saying they have, you know, each space is just as available to every single person, regardless of the color of their skin. But the point is, would they even think to apply to it? Because do they feel welcome? Do they feel like it's a place that they can go to? Does the curriculum represent what they would be interested in? Is it decolonized? Do the teaching staff represent them? Do they see themselves in those lecture halls, not just on a prospectus cover where they've got to tick their diversity quota, but when you go into that lecture hall, will the people around you look like you? Will the person teaching the course look like you? Will the person who wrote the book you studied look like you? And for my course, I can definitely say that they wouldn't. I have never been taught by a Black lecturer in my 3-year degree, despite we studied the Harlem Renaissance, we've studied, you know, Black poets, Black writers, and every member of staff that I've ever been taught by was white. And what does that tell? If you studied the course, or even if you did apply to the course, and then you sat in every single one of those lectures, would you even consider that you could be a lecturer in the future? Yeah. Maybe not. you know. So that's where I'm really realizing that everyday racism is the stuff that I don't even notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on my side, of course,
Yeah.
we're on the other end of things. This is something that I I think the best way for me to put it is that it's something I don't even notice anymore because it happens so frequently. You know, my first racist experience, south of France, at the age of like 8, and like it was very much like a very awkward altercation, which I like. You know, when you're at this age where everyone in your head is a good person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And obviously, I grew up in church, like grew up in the church choir. So for me, it's like, you know, everyone follows Jesus. Everyone's a good person, and
Yeah.
you know that's the way life is. But then, you know, when you're being stopped with your parents and like you're grocery shopping and you're being accused of like shoplifting, it's very much like, what what's going on here? And that's just at the age of 8. Then going to like, you know, schools where you might have like black people around you, but then, you know, teachers, for example, look absolutely nothing like you. 5 years of secondary school, I think I maybe had like 2 black teachers in my entire studies. Bearing in mind, this was me attending 4 different schools. So there's that. Secondary, sixth form, not a single black person taught anything I was learning. And at King's, I've not had a single black lecturer in my life. And
Yeah.
then you know, these are just like little things. Then, you know, there's the whole awkward thing where someone's crossing the road when you're walking down. The security guard doesn't want to let you onto your own campus and it's like, are you a student here? And, you know, these are like just a few different examples of like crazy things going on. Like even my sisters, for example, were talking the other day that, you know, black girls with like braids, for example, want to add a bit of color in there because, you know, sometimes you get tired of like just black braids. And you know, they're dashing a burgundy, which is color of the school uniform, by the way. And it's like, oh no, you can't do that. But then, you know, there's the white children that are you know, the emo group of like the secondary school, you know, green hair, pink hair, and for them it's like expression. And it's just like, so why is it that it's fine for them and it's not fine for us? You know? So yeah, I do think when people are just like, oh yeah, racism doesn't exist anymore, I'm just like, are you blind? Like, let's look around. These are things that are everywhere. Even, you know, the curriculum, studying things where it's just like the the first black-ish kind of module I'm doing is next year, my final year of 4 years of university, and
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be like Black German literature. But before that, you know, everything I've studied, so Eurocentric, very European focused. And it's like, okay, cool. Yes, I'm in a country in Europe, but why is it that in my first year of university, I've spoken on, you know, the Turkish movement within Germany and like politics, but, you know, black people are still being ignored. So, yeah, this is something that's experienced every day by so many black people. And it's just, I think a lot of them are tired of sharing it because it's become such a norm.
For sure. I agree with what you're saying about the curriculum being very colonially influenced.
Yeah.
I chose a module at university, so I do an English literature degree, and I've just finished my final year. At the beginning,
did
an English lit degree.
did.
I know.
He's a graduate, y'all.
Yeah, once COVID leaves the building, then I will be a graduate. But yeah, so I was looking at the modules that I wanted to take for my final year, where you get to specialize a lot more. And there was a module called A Society of Equals, ? So I thought, great, it's going to be about equality. It's going to be about different experiences of equality or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
So I picked this module. I got my reading list sent through. Every author but one was white, European, male.
Of course.
Because it was about the concept of equality. It wasn't about experiences. It was about like the philosophical ideas behind what equality is. And I dropped that module like it was hot.
Yeah.
But I had to actively search out a module. And actually, I became really aware of it after reading Taking Up Space, which is just the most incredible book, as I know that you know. But I became really aware of how, whether the curriculum really was decolonized, and it wasn't. So I found this one module which was on South Asian literature, and it was incredible. It was such a fascinating and incredible module, and I've read so much literature that I've never been exposed to before. But I had to actively go out and find it, and 20 people to 40 people take that module. You know, it's like the curriculum doesn't represent a lot of people.
Absolutely not.
And also, you mentioned about hair, and for that, I read this book over the summer. So this was of my own accord, not on the curriculum, but it's Americana by Adichie, which is just such a great book. And it talks about those everyday racism events and experiences, and especially a kind of huge motif in that book is hair, black hair specifically. And, you know, about how it can be fetishized and how people want to touch it and how weird and alienating and disorientating that can be.
Makes you feel.
And what you were saying actually really reminds me of when I was at secondary school. I went to an all boys school, and I remember this guy coming in, and he was black, and he had had his hair cut into kind of like a mohawk. And he was put into isolation because they deemed that an extreme haircut. Someone else came into school with a Nike tick cut into the back of their hair, and that was fine. And I think, where was the line there? Like, what was the determining factor? And at the time, I didn't consider it, but now that I look back, I think
something smells a bit racist here.
Hold a sec. So there you go.
No, definitely. Like it's sad. Like now, like I think a lot of things that even happened like during secondary school. Like for me, like obviously schooling in France, going to school in Russia. That's another conversation for another day, because that was bad. That was bad. But like when I moved to Manchester, for example, going to secondary school here, there's a lot of things that now I look back and I'm just like, oh, hold up, wait a minute. What's going on here? Like I remember vividly a time like year 11, you know, when you start studying independently because like your GCSEs are around the corner. A bunch of us were basically just in a science room at lunchtime, like revising. And the teacher literally just walked out and was just like, oh, what gang is meeting here? And I'm just like, triple science, biology B6. That's what's going on here, bro. And it was just like, oh no, you guys shouldn't be left in a classroom alone. And it's just like these are the teachers, by the way, like the people that are expected to educate you,
and the people
this
you
is their mentality. Exactly. So it's very much like, so if you're like in these hours, you're basically like the person that's meant to take care of me, meant to teach me, and meant to help me grow academically, and then like mentally and emotionally, you're the person that's saying these things to me. So who is really in my corner here? So I think I do think everyday racism unfortunately is a thing, and it's up to literally you noticing it and speaking up. Like when, you know, things are not really looking good from like me, you know, my female friends at a party, for example, I'm very much there to say, listen, I'm her boyfriend. I'm not, but we'll go with that because I'm going to protect the people I care about. So but anyway, let's see, 1,300. Thank you guys, 170 donations. Crazy. Thank you everyone so much. This is some great stuff. But let's see some more questions. V said, I love you guys.
We love you. And actually, I was reading one of the things that V had kind of said about this, and it was about how at Oxford University, she entering her college, it's almost second guess whether she's a tourist or a student versus actual tourists who were just being let in. You know, because it was assumed that they would belong in that college. And I think that is just craziness. That's another one of those microaggressions, one of those everyday racism events that seems so tiny, but if that happens to you every day,
every single time,
it's awful.
Literally, I remember
it's so annoying.
In my first like month of university, something happened, and like it really set me back emotionally and like mentally, and I was very ready to like move universities, because obviously moving from Manchester to London, big move. And then in my first year halls, basically something happened and I had to basically move halls, and basically they put me up in like the very much like white bougie like center of Waterloo hall. So you know, black people in there was no black people in that apartment, let's just put it that way. And it literally happened like every other week where security would stop me and be like, ID, please. And then I'd see people who I know don't live here. I come to see their friends. I would just walk through easily. And like these scenarios would happen on campus where like security would stop you and be like, oh, random search. And, you know, these are things where you just feel like, do y'all want me here? Like, we work so hard to, you know, get the grades, get into these schools. And now to finally then get there and be treated like an alien, like an outsider, and like to be othered. It's just like, listen, I'd rather just go home and do online school where I know I'm safe with my
Yeah,
parents in the four walls of my own home. So yeah, these are things that, especially that are predominantly white institutions, a lot of Black people go through.
for sure.
But ooh, let's see. Ooh, that's a good point. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. But people's opinion of me visibly changes when they find out I'm mixed race. Yeah. I think there was a video of a guy, I can't remember his name, but he basically said that as a, like, being half Black and half white, as a mixed race person, he can't fully relate to what Black people are going through because there's still a certain level of white privilege that he enjoys. So yeah, but anyway, let's take another question. Oh, what do you think about firms talking about equality only as it pertains to gender?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a very public discourse, the gender debate. Not that it's a debate, you know, but I think that it's probably when they know that they instantly can appeal to, say, 50% of the population, or if you're a fashion house that predominantly promotes to women and you make a t-shirt called Girl Boss, I don't think they ever really think of any, you know, it being received as anything other than exactly what the message they're trying to put across is. So I think then when it comes to racism, why are we not as eager to, and is it because it doesn't sell? You know, is that the reason? I don't know, but I think it's definitely something to consider.
I think when it comes to like in terms of sociology, it falls back to like just intersectionality. When it comes to like gender, there's still a very much large percent of white women that enjoy, you know, the privilege it is to be a white woman.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like companies will push this because yes, you know, the whole girl boss culture, it makes sense. It sells. We know it sells. We've seen it sells. So, you know, when it comes to like, I don't know, National Women's Day, you know, all the companies love to ride out for it because it's making them money. It's making them relevant. It's making them look, you know, oh, we're fighting towards justice. We're fighting towards equality. But then, someone said Amy Cooper. We'll get into that one later. But yeah, I think when it comes to like Black people, I think I got a voice note from a subscriber this afternoon, and she was basically saying that it's very interesting, like, you know, companies, brands, firms in whatever industry love to, you know, be very much aligned to like Blackness as a trend, like Blackness that helps them sell. So, you know, even when it comes to like, obviously this might be talking now linguistics, but when it comes to language attached, oh yeah, slay, you go girl, like these are obviously Black colloquial terms that have kind of like, you know, become very commercialized.
Yeah.
And, you know, the companies will love running with that. For example, on like celebrity Instagram lives, we'll see some of them being like, oh yes, oh no. But then when it comes to situations like this, everyone just wants to kind of protect their space, protect, you know, investors that, and for me, it's very much like if you're a company that has to be scared of speaking up against wrong because your investors are racist, should you be allowing these people to invest in your company? I think that's fundamentally where we're at. And yes, of course, you can't like, you know everyone's politics by knowing them, but you can't enjoy our culture, enjoy our art, enjoy everything we bring to the table, but not respect us as people. Like, I have no problem, you know, with white people wanting to listen to rap. Come on, my favorite artists are making more money. I'm here for that. But it's just like valuing us as people is important.
And also,
continue. Sorry.
No, I on what you were saying about music culture, especially, I think if you're going to be the people who are chanting those songs at the top of your lungs at the gigs in a nightclub, where are you now, and what are you doing now to support those people? That's something I think is really important. But please carry on.
Yeah, I think I don't even know what I was going to say, but I think like my point stands for itself. Like the companies can push gender because white people will benefit from the whole gender debate at the end of the day.
Mm.
And as of right now, it just seems like Black people aren't being valued, not just for at like an institutionalized level, but also in the corporate sector. And yeah, it's sad, and I don't think like hiring Black people doesn't help. I think it's really hiring Black people and creating a space where Black people feel like they can speak up. Because if I work in a like predominantly white firm, that's not the problem. But if I feel like, you know, anything wrong or anything I'll say can result to the termination of my job, of course I'm never going to say anything. Of course I'm going to let my firm put out all these, you know, statements that are so tone deaf and really very much like incorrect to say, because I don't want to lose my job. Because at the end of the day, it might be, you know, I have a family, I have children to take care of, and I can't put them through that. So I think it's not just like having Black people in your firm to take, oh yeah, we've got 2 Black guys, we've got an Asian guy, oh yeah, we've got a girl, or we've got someone that, you know, identifies as gay or straight or any other brackets of the LGBTQ community. But it should be a thing where you have these people at the table with you, that they can influence these decisions, so that, you know, we don't cancel you. But then also, it's not about cancelled, it's also like do the right thing. So yeah, I think that's that on that.
For sure.
See,
I'm hoping, I don't know how it works on here, but does it end the stream after an hour?
I also don't know, because I'm not an IG live guy.
Yeah, nor am I. If anyone knows, please let us know. And does it
IG live videos last? Thank you, Google.
And what happens when it's a fundraiser? I don't know. Oh, you said yes.
It ends after an hour. Okay, so we've got like 8 more minutes, and we've raised £1,400. Guys, this is crazy.
Our lovely manager Rachel has just sent me a text being like, yes, it does.
Oh, Rachel's here. Hi, Rach.
We love her.
But yeah, we love Rachel.
I just clocked the time and I was like, right, we don't want to lose it.
Yeah. So up to you. Do you want to come back and continue?
Happily.
Mind. Fantastic. Yeah. So when it ends, well, I'll save this live. I'll save the live for anyone that wants to like go back to it, and then we'll continue it. But let's take one more question.
Yes.
We're back and we'll be better. Oh, okay. Good. Any excuse for people that have been silent on this issue?
I understand that initially you may not know the right words to say, or you may not be educated enough. And I've seen various posts that usually start off with, I've taken a while to process this.
Yes, yeah.
But, you know, we are all having to process this. And there are children who are having to process this, whose lives it will directly impact.
Yeah.
There are teenagers on social media, on TikTok, who are explaining these things. There are also articles you can read. So at what point does that not become an excuse anymore? I would suggest by this point, this happened on, was it last Monday?
Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah, at least a week ago now. That's enough time for you to have
very much so
looked into it, read some things, researched.
Tell them.
Yeah.
Tell them.
So actually, there isn't an excuse anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely. And also when people say, because this went really bad on Twitter, like a lot of people were basically saying, oh, the silence from at this person is deafening. The silence from at this person is deafening. And it's very much like, you don't know how people are supporting. That's one thing I like to say. And then 2, a lot of people, like, articulation might not be their go-to. You know, like a lot of people don't know how to put their words into things.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't stop you from retweeting. That doesn't stop you from posting donation links and petitions. So you might not be able to put out a statement of your own words, but that doesn't stop you from sharing everything that's out there anymore.
And actually looking for it as well, actively looking for the people who are articulating it. Definitely. I think that's so important.
And then using their information to build up your words, if that makes sense. because like so much stuff has been out there in the last week, and I love it. And I don't just want it to be a thing where, you know, after 2-3 weeks it kind of like gets swept under the rug. Like, no, let's keep speaking, let's keep helping people educate themselves. Like, I love all the influencers that have used their platform, you know, to really push this. And the thing is, I think you can see through performative actions as well. Like, I think a lot of like the people I surround myself with should be very much like-minded, and a lot of my friends, you know, have used that platform where it's just like, listen, I'm not just gonna sit here and tweet Black Lives Matter, or, you know, put, you know, the black fist up on my story. Like, I'm going to do more. I'm seeing things where it's like, you know, resources, things you can do as, you know, a British person to help the situation in America. 75, I think, yeah, that, like, I was so proud of you when I shouldn't be proud of you, it's normal, but still, I was very much happy to see, you know, you going out of your way without being forced or, you know, pressured to tweet. And listen, here's a thread of what y'all can do, and everyone, let's get our shit together and stand with those that need us to stand with them. So yeah, I think a week later, I don't think anyone should be silent, really. So some of y'all need to question your faith.
Yeah, and also, I mean, what I really wanted to share was like, hey, at one point in my life, I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to not understand these things. But I had to. We have to. We have a duty to, almost. So I wanted to share the things that made me understand, and that's really important too. Is if you looked up an article, or you found a specific article that really helped your understanding, that's what you should share, because if it got through to you, then it will get through to someone else too. So it's, yeah, I don't think we need to share the super academic textbooks on this kind of thing. It's that one article that resonated with you and your experiences and made it make sense.
Definitely. Okay, so what I think should work now is we end this live, save the live, come back again, and then get the questions we've not answered to come, basically like send them in again, so that, you know, we keep things nice and coherent. Yeah.
Okay. Big responsibility on you now to save the live.
Listen, if I mess up now, I've messed up for good. So I think we'll be fine. But yeah, so we'll see you guys in like 2 seconds for round 2.
Yes.
Okay, so end live. All right, hi. So I've uploaded it to IGTV, so I think it's uploading. And if everything goes well, then we should be fine. But yeah, guys, just sending your questions again. We're back and we're better. We get you whatever, y'all. Sending your questions, and then we'll just basically keep having this conversation.
For sure.
So I think in the last one we raised 1,400, around that mark. So
that's blown my little brain.
It's just so mad. But again, for anyone that's joining, just like a reminder, if you don't have the money, please don't feel pressured to like donate. But literally, you can go. I've got it up. It's still running. Zoe Amira's YouTube channel, and basically just, you know, play it. Don't skip the ads. Watch the ads and let it play in the background. And the AdSense will go to the movement. So yeah, let's pick the first question of round.
You can have the excitement of being the first person to donate to part 2 of the live stream, though, because we are currently on 0, and how sad does that look?
Yeah, that's very true. So I mean, one of y'all can do something. One of y'all can do something. But should I, as a white person, be saying black person or person of color? I mean, that's a very good question, and I'm tell you straight. For me personally, the term people of color, I am not a fan. I do see, you know, when people use it in like very unharmful events where it's just like, you know, oh, we've got people of color, you know, oh, First Nation.
Thank you so much.
Gang. But yeah, I think the term people of color kind of generalizes everyone's experience, if that makes sense. So the Asian community goes through things that I just can't relate to. And I said in my video, I think the term is just slightly redundant, really, because black people have specific issues that black people are going through, and the only thing, you know, we share or we have in common is that we're minorities in a country where, you know, white people are the majority. So I think there was like this really awkward time period where people used to like walk on eggshells and didn't want to use the term black because they didn't know if it was offensive or not. But listen, black, blackity, black, black, black. Use it, say it proudly, because that's what we identify as, and
Say it
that's
with your
what we
chest.
want to be called. Say it with your chest. Say it with all the energy in the world. So yeah, I think as a white person, don't be afraid to use the term black. It might, take a few. It might take a few tries to roll through comfortably off your tongue, but yeah, like that's what we want to be called. And I think if a community has said, cohesively that this is what we want to be referred as, I think, what else do you want to call them? That
Yeah.
makes sense. So, but that's my answer to that question. Do you have anything to input?
I don't think that's my choice, really. I think it's like, I think we should respect what other people would identify as, and yeah, I think it's the same way in terms of anything that is fundamental to you. It's how you want to be referred to as. So I would always just follow that.
Oh, this question. Oh, okay. You know what? We said it's going to be uncomfortable, so that's fine. The question says, what was your most standout experience of racism in school, either covert or overt? Lord Jesus. Okay. School for me is quite hard, primarily because moving from country to country sometimes felt very lonely. But yeah, this is not, all in his time, but it was just that. And I think living in some of the countries where, like, as bad as we have it here, there's European countries that are so much worse. Like, there's a solid amount of minorities in Britain. But if we're looking at, Dubai, France, Russia, like, it's not great over there. And I remember being in school in France, and it was literally just, I think, harmless joke to some people, but for me, it's something that kind of really hurt, where it was just lunchtime. It was very much like my first month-ish, and basically what the school is doing is that in like your first 3 weeks, you're kind of like, in a room with all like the new kids, and you're adjusting to the school, and you have your own lunch times, and that kind of thing. And this was like the first week when I was actually like out of that classroom, and I was in the lessons with everyone else, and it was basically at lunch. And obviously I didn't have no friends. My French was very shaky, so it was quite hard to fit in, not just because of language, but also because of the color of my skin and the fact that, oh, he's the new kid. So adding all these things together was very much like, okay, I'm just gonna kind of minding my own business, for the first few weeks. And I basically grabbed my food, and I was just sat at the end of a table with like a bunch of like French kids, and they were just saying something in French that I couldn't translate, and I think the confusion on my face showed. So they decided to translate it for me as saying, oh, we don't want a black guy eating lunch with us. And I was 12 at the time, so for me it was just very much like, so I just took my plate and like I moved somewhere else. But I think that's like one of the earliest and really like toughest moments I've had to deal with. And yeah, I really didn't like living there. Crazy stuff. But yeah, that's that.
That, like, one of the very frustrating things about a story like that is that they would taught that response. That's not something that you ever that you're born with. You don't think about that. So yeah, that's why everything like this is so crucial. And hopefully we'll be a better generation of teachers, of parents, of people.
But yeah, let's take another question. Ooh, okay. How much Black history were you both taught in school?
Minimal. I think I was always taught about like slavery and the civil rights movement, but not in there was never anything to do with UK race politics. It was always to do with America. It was almost like that is separate to us. Like, that didn't happen on the streets that you live in. It happened on streets you've probably never been to. So, but in terms of British history and colonial history, I really had to research for myself. It wasn't something that I was really taught until probably degree level, where I was having to search things up and be like, hang on a sec, how did I not know that happened? What about you?
I think for me, so growing up like in a Nigerian West African
Yeah.
household, I was very much like taught, you know, the history of like, you know, Nigeria and like, you know, the Biafra War and things like that. But in terms of like, you know, Black European history or like Black British history, y'all, I couldn't tell y'all, like, I can tell you a few things now, but like, this is very much my own research where I was just like, listen, I'm very sure there's more to British history than, you know, just dead white men, if we're being honest. So there's that. But like in secondary school, we did like, you know, the civil rights movements, we did slavery, they made us watch Roots and class. But I was really lucky that in year 10 and year 11, I picked GCSE history as one of my subjects. My history teacher was very much anti-racist, pro-black man. And y'all, if anyone from St. Peter's is here, shout out to Mr. Mottram. Love that guy. And as much as like, you know, the curriculum he was given to teach was very white, he always found a way to like explain, you know, during this time, obviously we did like, you know, 1920s, boom in America, 1930s, Great Depression, like, you know, that era. He always found a way to like explain that, you know, this is what women were going through and this is what Black people were going through at that time because they are part of, you know, the citizens of that country. So I think that's as much as we really got. But in terms of like, you know, what was actively happening in the country we were going to school in, we didn't really get anything, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
I actually
continue.
I saw a thread. Oh, here it is. About children's books that discuss racism, and I don't know whether it was worth mentioning a few of them now. In case anyone is watching who has a younger relative who you think for that their next birthday, maybe this book as a gift would be something that I would consider giving to help them learn at a young age. But so
yeah,
the list is Malcolm Little. There's a book called Let It Shine, Stories of Black Women Freedom Fighters. A book called Something Happened in Our Town. This one is called My Hair is a Garden.
Ooh, that sounds good.
And Separate is Never Equal. So I don't know if that helps, just to have some actual like recommendations there that that you could pass on. If
yeah,
you
they sound good. Sorry, I'm just refilling.
That was like ASMR.
Yo.
I enjoyed that. Yes.
It's quality content. 11 more questions. Y'all, I ain't even gone through the other ones. Okay, let's try and like tackle a few like quickly. So, okay, I've answered that. Oh wow, that's small. Guys, I've got bad eyesight. Okay. Hey, what do I do if I have a close That's really tiny. Okay. Hey, what do I do if I have a close friend that still hasn't spoken publicly about it, not shared or reposted anything? She's always active and she's a non-Black person of color. I don't know if that matters. Ooh, I'm not one to just say cancel friends, if that makes sense. But I think like have a conversation with her and really think like really ask her and try and understand not try and understand where she's coming from, but listen to her explanation as to why she's silent. Because maybe she might be of a I don't want to, you know, share trauma. I don't want to make it seem ingenuine. And maybe she's doing a lot of reading on her own. And maybe she's like educating herself privately. And like, you know, once she's explained that to you, you know, you can't really falter. Because like for me, I'm not here for the social media. I'm not here for all the posts. It's really, what are you like offline? Does that make sense? Like, what is your politics and what are your views when there's no Wi-Fi? So if she's really actively doing a lot behind the scenes, then that's good. If not, then it's really up to you to make that decision. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, cut her off. But like, you know, listen to her, listen to what she has to say. If she's doing the work, she's doing the work. If she's not, ask her, why isn't she? And, you know, if she's uncomfortable, like if it's because she's uncomfortable, she doesn't understand these things, it's not up to you to educate her. That's when you have the choice to say, well, go and do so, or sit her down and be like, okay, cool. Let's dismantle this thing. Let's talk. What makes you uncomfortable? And let's actually explore this discomfort and help you learn.
Mm.
That's what I think. But
I
what
guess
about you?
a way into that conversation might just be like, oh, have you seen everything that's been going on in the news? And so you sort of open up the discussion, but you let them take it at first before lecturing them on all of the things that you've read and all of the things that you have done.
Yeah.
Listen to how they're receiving it, because they might surprise you and say, oh yeah, I donated to this cause and I've signed all the petitions, and maybe they didn't want their activism to be an Instagram post. But yeah, I think allowing them to talk about it first, and that's kind of how you can gauge where to go next with it. But I think what you said is absolutely perfect. Like, you can recommend things and suggest things and encourage them, but there will be a point where someone doesn't want to learn, someone doesn't want to be better, and I think that's when you have to consider their intentions and who they are as a person and as a friend.
Yeah. Next question. Okay, we've kind of. Oh, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter becoming politically aligned?
Do you know what I hate is when people say it's like lefties, like these, or anything like that, because it's like, what? You know,
this is not a right wing, left wing thing. This is a human rights thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, any side, yeah, I get your point. It is jarring.
That's something that I find frustrating, that they even should be considered to come hand in hand. Yeah. I don't know. I think, at what point are human lives and human rights political?
Yeah.
And also consider who is making them political. Like, because I would suggest that certain leaders have made this political, not the people on the streets, not the people who are dying. You know, they weren't making it political. The people who threatened their own countrymen, the people who called them thugs, made it political.
Yep, and that's on period. That's on period.
So
yeah, very much so. I do think like this is definitely not like it can't be a politics thing, because there's Black Republicans, there's Black conservatives. Like, this is not a thing of like, oh, what is my political viewpoint? It's literally just a thing of, I am seeing that people are not being treated right, and I've decided to speak up against it. So I don't think this is elect me because this is what I am, you know, oh, my re-election is coming up, who best to appease in this moment. Like, it's definitely, it's above politics at this point. So yeah, the whole ideology that, oh yeah, this is a leftist movement, I'm so sorry. I think if you think that, you really need to do some internal work here, because this ain't it.
Yeah.
This just ain't it.
To conclude, this is not it.
Conclusion of my argument. That's how I'm going to end my next essay. Thank you so much for reading the above, but this ain't it. Oh, okay, cool. This is a good one. How do we feel about the looting? Tough one.
Yeah. I think that the looting is being highlighted by certain media outlets, and I think you always have to consider, why have the media that I'm consuming, or that people are consuming, chosen to represent something that's going on in the world in this specific way, and why have they chosen to highlight this action, and how do they think it will make me, the reader, view the people who are doing those things? Because there's intent behind everything. If you were to write an article, you would pick from a certain pool of videos. Nothing is not biased in a certain way. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
For me, it's a tough one, because I understand the frustration. Like, I understand that this is genuinely a thing of, we've spoken, we've done the peaceful stuff, we've done the, you know, addressing things like, you know, in the right manner, we've gone through the right channels, we haven't been heard. And out of anger, out of frustration, we're now looking for the best way to get your attention. I do get that. I do think like some of the looting, like, let's be honest, is it's violence, shouldn't be done. And then also, who's really behind the looting? Like, you know, I've seen some videos where, you know,
Definitely.
it's been, you know, white people making things worse so that they can say this is violent. And then I was spending the early hours of this morning watching one of my faves now. I've decided to stand Anderson Cooper. Hopefully he doesn't do anything that makes me have to cancel him later. But he was basically just saying, at the end of the day, the places that are being looted will be fine. The
Yeah.
lives that have been taken can't come back. So we shouldn't focus on, you know, how are people crying out or how are people doing this, but it's very much like, let's listen to what they actually have to say, address that, and maybe then the looting would stop. So I do think it's a tough one, because some of them, like some of the videos I'm seeing, I'm just like, you're looting in your own community, you're, you know, destroying businesses that are very much a part of your community. Does that make sense? No. However, I get the frustration. And I think for me, I only have family in the States. I don't live there. So I can't even put myself in the shoes of where, you know, this is happening literally like every other day. So I think it's a tough one. And really and truly, yeah, the media, some channels have their agenda, and it shows very clearly in
Definitely.
what they want to put up in, you know, the titles and like the words they put on the screen. And yeah, I don't think the police are helping the situation as well, to be honest, because I've seen videos where black people peacefully protesting are being arrested, are being dragged, are like being tear gassed and, you know, shot at. But then, you know, white people who are running out of stores stealing stuff are being asked, "Oh, ma'am, can you kindly?" And it's just like, this ain't it.
Yeah.
Again.
I've just seen a question that said, what's your opinion on Katie Hopkins' tweets about, it doesn't even matter what the tweets were. I think an important thing to consider here when we think about people like Katie Hopkins is that her literal job is being controversial. Her brand is being controversial. And as a kind of behind the scenes thing about like YouTube, about journalism, about celebrity culture, about influencers, is that everyone is aware of what their personal brand is and what their audience are looking for. And for people like Katie Hopkins, her audience and what makes her name big and what makes her brand is that she is controversial. And I think that governs the way that she decides what her opinions are on things. So,
very much so.
It's like, how can I upset people? How can I go against what people who want equality, people who fight for other people's freedom, how can I upset those people? And how can I make more money from it? How can I make my name bigger? So I try to ignore Katie Hopkins and people of that kind of breed, because they are a separate breed entirely.
Very much so. I've muted her. I think I blocked her on Twitter. I've muted her like everything else. I've also muted like her name, so like her stuff doesn't come on my TL. And I think everyone should just do the same, because fundamentally, as Jack said, people in this industry, in the entertainment culture, know their brand. Katie, I'm saying first name, but anyway, our good sis, is very aware that if she tweeted, "Good morning, guys. Hope everyone has a lovely day," she's not collecting coins. She's not relevant. She's not,
there's no headline
tomorrow's papers. There's not. However, she knows that, everyone wants this. This is what people are fighting for. Let me, tweet something that, will get people's feathers a bit ruffled. That's how she stays relevant. And the thing is, some of you guys, I'm not attacking anyone, by the way, but engaging with her tweets gets her what she wants. You're better off, if you see it, ignore it, meet her, because if there's no one to make angry because there's no audience, she would be very much irrelevant. And I think it's just the same thing for like the whole bunch of that side of Twitter. And we know who we're talking about. So yeah, that's mine on that, really.
I think if your job and what pays the bills is you having controversial views, then I don't really trust your opinion necessarily as like, a vanguard of truth.
You have absolutely nothing to say, but yeah. One of the questions on the tag is, opinions/advice on going to protest during a pandemic.
We're in a tricky situation. Like 2020 has season finale vibes,
There's just been too much going on at once.
Yeah. I think it's a tough one. It's a horrible one to have to negotiate. It's unprecedented. It isn't ideal. It's not normal. No one wants to have to be protesting in the first place. But what people are doing at the moment is absolutely incredible and so important. And, you know, the Stonewall, the suffragettes got their point across by protesting and rioting in the ways that they did. So I do think that it is important. The pandemic adds this whole crazy dimension to it that, I mean, my phone battery side just came up. I don't know. There is
I guess as much.
There's no answer.
I think
I don't know what
me,
you think.
it's just there's no answer. I think for me, if you're really like if you feel led to protest, I think you have to take like the most drastic measures possible. You know, your gloves, your masks. You know, make sure you are not at risk, and you also don't have anyone at home at risk. So, you know, when you come back straight into the shower, make sure you really disinfect anything that needs to be disinfected. But however, you know, if you're at risk, I do think there's so much you can do, not having to be on the streets, if that makes sense. So I don't think people who, for example, don't want to feel, people who don't want to feel bad for not protesting shouldn't feel bad. Like, it's perfectly fine. And also, I know some of my friends were just like, my parents are not going to let me go out and protest. And that's perfectly fine, because I don't think my dad would let me either, because it's very much like your health comes first. We're in a pandemic. It is dangerous. And I understand those worries as a parent. So, just make sure you're as safe as you as possible, really. And I don't think we're here, like me or Jack or anyone is here to be like, oh no, if you're not protesting, you're not. No, there's so many other things you can do that would also like aid valuing the sanctity of Black lives.
Yeah, you can protest from home for sure. There's things you can do to amplify Black voices, which are spreading the crucial messages, to get your voice heard and make sure the people who need to hear it and have the authority to actually make changes hear it. So sending an email to your local MP or to a councillor or to the police, that is protesting, and it's being active in this struggle. So you can do it in your own 2-meter bubble.
Oh, someone asked, what is our opinion on basically Trump's little stunt with the Bible last night?
What was your opinion?
For me, I'm very much also talking from a place of kind of experience. So I grew, like, I'm church boy. If anyone wants to hold that title, I will hold it gladly and proudly. I grew up in church. My parents are pastors. I'm very much aware of Christianity as a religion. Like, that's what I practice. And I think when a lot of like Southern Americans, especially like Southern American racists, will find a way to like use words in the Bible to twist them to push their own agenda. So one thing like I've been saying is that not everything Bible is Christian. So, you know, the Bible was one written to the people of that time. So, for example, where the Old Testament and even parts of the New Testament kind of can be seen as justifying slavery, it's very much like, because that was the culture of the time. We're now in 2020. There is absolutely no way you can tell me that you're a Christian, but then, you know, you're not valuing lives of everyone. At the end of the day, Jesus didn't just come to die for white people. Jesus didn't just walk for, you know, the people that look like him. It was very much for anyone and everyone. So I think it's very like, there's a lot of things that man has done that I disagree with. But I think yesterday it was very much like an insult to actual Christians. And I don't know if you were like watching the news, but there was a part where the church he stood out of, the bishop of that church actually called, and she was like, she's disgusted, she's appalled, and this man has never actually stepped foot into the church. There's never been any contact between him and the church. So this was very much a move of, oh, extreme right-wing Christians, vote for me in November because God's behind me. And I'm just like, listen, the God I know and the God I serve loves everyone, and you don't. So a lot of things aren't making sense
It's
here.
not adding up.
Yeah, it's not like, so yeah, that's my take on it. I just think that the Bible can easily be misquoted by anyone really. So it's very much like, let's do our research, let's pay attention, let's read things with historical context as well. And that's my take on that.
I think it's also pretty key to think, when has he held the Bible up before? What, you know, how is he appropriating it, and for what reason, and what is it serving? What is that? Everything that people in positions like that do is a choice. Every word in a tweet, every thing that you hold up, you actively chose to do that, and there's a reason behind it, and there's a message you wanted to put across. So what is that? And is that consistent with how you normally justify actions? Because I would suggest probably not in this case.
Yeah, it was a photo op. Let's call it spade a spade. Like, it was a photo shoot. And one thing I feel like a lot of people sometimes forget, Trump isn't necessarily the most traditional or orthodox politician. Like, he was very much like a businessman, very much like a controversial figure in that industry. And he's aware of how social media works. And when I see Trump tweet something, I'm like, I know that this is very intentional. This is very thought out, and he knows the reaction he's going to get, and he knows what he's going to do to come back at that reaction. So when I saw it yesterday, I was just like, ew. Like, this was very much like prep for, because the primary started in a few states this week. So like, it was a push for the votes really. And it's just very upsetting that, you know, this is the religion a lot of people hold so close to their heart, that had to be insulted in such a way. But
appropriated, misappropriated.
So sad. But I just got word we have hit 1,700. We're nearly at 2K, and that is so crazy.
Yeah.
I, you know, in my head, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to pat myself on the back and, like, you know, treat myself with a nice meal and wine if we hit 500. And the fact that we're on 1,700 is very crazy. And yeah, thank you everyone so much for donating. Like, honestly, we're nearly on like over 200 donations.
I think a way that I was thinking about it this morning was, if we weren't in this lockdown, how much money would I have spent today that I haven't spent? How much more would I have spent on, you know, getting the bus or going to Starbucks and getting my iced coffee? How much would I have spent in that time since George Floyd was murdered? How much would I have spent? How much money would I have spent? And how much have I saved from the sheer fact that we are in a pandemic? Yeah. And can I donate that money now to a cause that really needs it? And that's what I would really actively encourage you to do, whether it's to this specific fundraiser or to something else that is even closer to your heart within this same movement. Please give that money to someone who needs it.
Honestly. Let's take a few more questions while we have the time. Wow, there's a lot. There's really a lot here. I love it. Like, okay. Ooh, what do you feel we can do to help in the long term? I think that's a very good question. That's a very good question. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Every bit of reading that you're doing right now is long term, and you can continue to keep these conversations going, to have the resources to back up every point that you make. Because, okay, some people around you, like your closest friends, will agree and will understand and won't need proof. But you will come into contact with people who question the beliefs that you hold. And if you're equipping yourself now with all of the data and all of the information and all of the knowledge, you can reason with them and you can hold your own, and you'll feel like confident enough, especially when people of like older generations question you. It's quite sometimes condescending or patronizing because there is a power imbalance there. I've had conversations with people who were in positions of authority at my university who challenged me on certain opinions which I felt amongst my own generation were just kind of universal and ubiquitous, when they challenged me, I was thinking, because these have always been values that I've just held, do I actually have the like facts and figures to back up what I'm saying and reason with this person?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that you can, while everything is circulating and being pushed onto your newsfeed, and you have the time to read it, do. Even if you think you know, and it is obvious to you, one of the long-term effects you can have is educating others. Yeah.
I think what you said has been amazing. Like anything you're reading right now, it's not just like, the retweets and the posts, they're very like short term, in the moment, right now, right here. But anything you're reading, or like anything you're actively watching, engaging with, taking notes on, that's all long term. Like, this is not something you're just going to forget. Like dismantling your privilege isn't something you're going to ever forget. And then I think one thing is also like actively speak up against any form of racism you see. Let this be on campus. Maybe you're walking into your flat and the security guard is stopping the black girl that lives the floor above you. You can say like, excuse me, sir, this is very much wrong. And be there as an ally. Again, like I think we started the life with this. Being an ally really means like using what you have to like help those that don't necessarily have it. And like I've seen some videos that nearly brought me to tears of like black peaceful protesters, and then the police is arriving, and white people would stand in front of them and literally say, I am using myself to protect you. I am putting my life on the line for you. And obviously this is quite the extreme, but there's things you can do. You can speak out, when you see things that are wrong, actively use anti-racist language. Like I'm very quick to, be that person that, I will ruin the whole mood of this dinner and say that's racist. And we will all sit here and I'll explain to you why. And I think, that's the way to go. Like actively speak up when you see something is wrong. Don't just kind of like, oh, this was wrong, but like, don't let it get to the but. Literally just speak up and speak out. I think that's like one thing I have to say.
And these situations, as horrible and violent and brutal as they are, show you what the extreme of these microaggressions can build up to. And in that moment, this particular situation is the way that this tragedy was caused was over quite a long, like 9 minutes is a long time for you to make a decision in your head about what you're doing.
Yes.
But there will be situations, and there have been situations, where people in positions of authority, police officers, people react in a split second. And that is based on really fundamental things that they believe in their brain, and preconceptions they have, and stereotypes they subscribe to. And right now we're seeing how little microaggressions in a split second moment could lead to something really, really violent and horrible. And that's what we need to just nip it at the bud. It can't happen even on those microaggression levels to become aggressive behavior.
Yes, that's true. I think those are very good points in terms of like how to actively continue this momentum long term, because and also vote. Sorry, yes, I knew I was forgetting something. Voting is so important. Like it's not just a thing of, oh yeah, politics, this and that. Like you vote for your constituency, vote on like big matters, vote on referendums. Like there's I know this, sometimes I'm very dramatic, but there's people dying and putting their lives on the line to have the privilege to vote and influence, the institutions that are basically ruling their everyday lives and situations. So vote accordingly. Like when there's elections, register like any address you're in so that you can vote at any address you're at, because your votes matter. And I think maybe it's because I did like A-level politics and I take some modules like in the political field, but it's very sad that the next generation, like our generation now, is the least interested in politics. And when the voting turnout is being looked at and we're looking at the demographics and age, we're the least engaged. And it's like we then can't complain about the system not helping us and we are not being heard, when you've been given the opportunity to vote and you chose not to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So, vote for, members of parliament, vote for things that are actively helping everyone, not just, those with wealth and those, on, let's say, the right side, like the right wing side of things. And yeah, I think that's what I have to say.
Yeah. Do you reckon it's worth mentioning specific? We've spoken a lot about like read articles and read stuff, but like, do you reckon it's worth mentioning specific recommendations that we have?
Yeah. Why
Just
not?
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Putting me on the spot right here. So from the top of my head, I'm also going to get the description box of the StudyTube up, because I think that's like a solid bulk of resources. Obviously, like videos, you can actively just like, type up anyone and see. But a few videos that I've really loved watching is one, the IG live between Eve and Tolu.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of what we did. Then the IG live between like, Jade, V, and Renee. That was good. Then obviously individually, a few of us did videos that were really insightful, and I think really good to like hear it from like, different people. So like, there's the Black voice, but then obviously Jade dismantled the idea of like, actively being anti-racist as a white person, and I think that was good. Then obviously books. I think the most popular one that's kind of been around and in everyone's mouth is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, were by Remi Lodge. So that's like a really good book. But one thing she was saying, however, is that she doesn't want this momentum to like basically pay her more. Like, if you want the book, don't buy it. Try and like, borrow it or buy it from like a local bookstore to keep them going, like, during a pandemic and during riots. But I think that book was really insightful. Obviously, shout out to my sisters. Taking Up Space is an amazing, look. It's amazing to like think of race, but like at the level of like, university, because sometimes, when the topic comes up, people are thinking, or the workplace and like, adulthood and like dealing with racism there. But it's like, these are things your friends are facing and they might have not told you about. So I think those are like two really good books. Then you've got like, Martin Luther King's biography, How to Be Anti-Racist, So You Want to Talk About Race. Those are like very good reads that I know from the top of my head. But I think not everyone is a book person, and I think that's one thing that I think should have been made more evident, should have been highlighted more in the last few weeks, because everyone's been like, this book, this book, this book. But I know a few friends that like their attention span isn't 4 books, and like Netflix movies are there. The Hate You Give, fantastic script. I think that's a solid Netflix movie. When They See Us, that's very heartbreaking. I still haven't finished it because it's a lot emotionally, so I wouldn't be very quick to recommend it. But When They See Us, The Hate You Give, 13th, that one is really good. Dear White People, one of my favorite like series, especially when it looks at like, race at like a student level. Like, Dear White People is really good. Then you share a few. I've been rambling.
For me, I definitely am a book person. I agree, Taking Up Space, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin is quite like complicated criticism, but it is just so powerful. Like I said before, Americana by Adichie is such a great book, because even though it's fiction, it's so engaging.
And it's still relevant.
And if you are not necessarily a reader, Americana is actually available on YouTube as an audiobook, so for free. And so plug it in when you're doing your dog walk, when you're walking to, I don't know, or when you're queuing for your Tesco shop. I'd really recommend that. It's because it's about someone just going through ordinary life in America, and so you do see those everyday instances of racism and the microaggressions and the things that maybe you've never really considered before, that really affects other people.
How about The Yellow Sun?
Yes, yes. I haven't read that, but I've heard very good things.
I've heard very good things. I think I've read like 2 chapters, and like I the thing is, I'm very much like I want books physically. So it's not, I don't just want like I'm not a big fan of like the Kindle and like reading things like that. I like
Yeah.
actually having the book and fresh pages and stuff like that. So it's definitely like on my to order list. But I think yeah, we just dropped a solid amount of podcasts. Someone just asked, can you name some podcasts?
Ooh.
So I'm not a podcast guy. Like it's either I'm reading or I don't know how to explain it, but like it's either I'm seeing what I'm listening to or else I can't focus unless it's music. That's just me. But a few podcasts that we suggested, like based off like, you know, some people from the StudyTube Project that have listened to them. 1619, About Race, Code Switch, Intersectionality Matters, Momentum, a Race Forward podcast, and then Pod Save the People. Apparently those are really good, and I trust like Tolu put this fantastic list together, and I can trust Tolu with my life. So
that's a fair few hours of
research,
of content that you can watch and listen
honestly.
to there.
So yeah, let's take like a few more questions. Let's say 15 more minutes. So
Yeah,
like
perfect.
we'll end like a good solid 2 hours.
Yeah, I saw someone said we were like £50 away from 2000, which is mad.
That is a whole lot of crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, we've answered that. I wish like, is there no way like the questions we've answered like disappear? We've done reading reckon. Okay, do you think there needs to be economic justice to achieve true racial justice, i.e. socialism?
That there gets to a point where like, are we talking about a total paradigm shift where we're completely flipping all of the structures that we have on their heads? And are we, I don't know enough about economics to make a point about that. But what I would say is, let's not act as if we have to totally overturn this entire system overnight. Like, let's focus on what we can do right now and what we can individually do on a daily basis and on a conversation by conversation basis. I think that's really important, and that's one thing that we can each individually do. When it comes to ideologies, politics does become involved, and that's when we kind of take it away from a rhetoric of like human rights, and we turn it into like a political conversation, when really is it not about people just being able to exist peacefully?
I think that was literally going to be my response. Like, once you start thinking of it as like an economic issue, then it becomes a political issue. Like, politics and economics are tied hand in hand, and this is just a matter of like, you know, human rights and just valuing life in general. So yeah, for me, I don't necessarily think, you know, it has to be is economics like really going to be, you know, the factor that will define social justice? We don't need to go down that path. But yeah, that's all I have to say, really. I saw one question before that I thought was really good. How could you spread awareness in sixth form?
Oh, in sixth form, I think about every sixth form is different, right? But think about the structures that are in place to support students whose issues and whose plight is only just coming to your attention right now. Like, how, when you look back on those structures, do you think that they were as supported as they could have been, or as supported as you were because you were supported by the system inherently? Can you set up societies or groups that help support those people? Are there debating clubs which are or aren't discussing these issues, and how can you sort of propose them? How can you talk to the people with positions of authority in your education center who actually have the power to change things with one email? Can you send them something that you've received and you've consumed that you think they would find beneficial, and maybe they haven't been exposed to but would help them run that institution better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those sixth form is a tricky one.
I was gonna say, like, it really just depends on your sixth form and what you could do. For example, like, we could basically like have official events that even like the sixth form college would like basically promote for you once you like a tutor's kind of sign off, and like you've kind of presented what you want to do, what is it you want to talk about, like they're going to do like a background check and like whoever you want to invite. So it kind of like just really depends on like what is it you want to do. Speak to like so in my sixth form we had like head of houses, so like, you know, we're split into like different houses and like they had assemblies together as your house. So speak to your head of house. I was a head of house. Humble flex. And yeah, so basically like we plan our house assemblies basically, and it'll just be a thing where, you know, someone might bring something to my attention, and in the next like, you know, planning for the assembly, I'd be like, okay, can we not like get a teacher to like speak on this, since this is kind of like their field of expertise. Then also doing like sixth form had, well, my sixth form had like a lot of societies. There was like the economic society.
Yeah.
You can also do things within that. So if you like join that society's committee, for example, then you can kind of like, you know, influence the decisions made, like, okay, cool, we have to put an event together. Or how about, you know, we in the economic society, we look at, you know, wealth disparity amongst race. You know, you're kind of raising awareness that way. And yeah, fundraisers, like there's so many different things you can do once you understand what can you actually do by sixth form rules. So I think like when, you know, school goes back to normal, you can like have a conversation with like, I don't know, your personal tutor, your head of house, or like a teacher, and like actively ask, oh, what can you help me do, and what can I do? And yeah, sixth forms have money. Like my sixth form had money, so it was genuinely a thing where, oh, when we fundraised for like different causes, how much we reached, the sixth form would match. So
amazing, yeah.
But yeah, so definitely find out, you know, how much can you really do without, you know, getting in trouble, or like, you know, that way basically.
I saw someone said specifically like, how do you address it? And I think you were touching on that with like, okay, maybe you don't feel confident enough to speak to your head teacher or your principal, but is there like a head of house you can speak to, or a senior member of staff who you do feel comfortable speaking to, whose job it is to speak to the head teacher, who, you know, how can you start lower and slowly build it up? Who can you reach who has the right connections? And I think I've just seen £2,000.
Thank you, everybody. Sure, that's crazy. I can't believe that. But yeah, as Jack was saying, literally sometimes it doesn't help trying to like go directly all the way up and be like, I want to tackle this from the top and dismantle the system from the top, like, you know, work your way up. So like for little things, I would just be like, oh, you know, head of department, what's about? And from there on, it would be taken to like senior members of staff. Then I'd hear that, oh, my agenda made it to the staff meeting where the head teacher is present. And then also, oh, David just suggested student leadership. You've got head boys and head girls.
Yeah, for a reason.
So these are people you can be like, oh, I want to have a fundraiser, a car wash. I want to do this, that. And then, you know, these things can start being put in motion by fellow students as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. Shall we wrap up there? Yeah,
I think that was a good one. Yeah, and I think the sixth form advice is to anyone in like a secondary school or university as well. Like, yeah. Oh, student newspapers. So many advice coming through. But guys, honestly, it's been an amazing 2 hours. Like, I think this conversation was really good to have.
Yeah.
The fact that we've raised over £2,000 is beyond me. It's very.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for donating. Thanks so much, Jack, for actually, like, you know, being so willing to do this.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for, leading this conversation. I think it's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, yeah, I think I'll end it and save it as well. Forget to save it. But, guys, thank you so much, honestly.
Keep the conversation going as well, like at home, at school, with whoever you're with, like keep it going on social media or off social media, whatever's best for you.
But yeah, that's it from us. We finna leave and love y'all. It's 10:30. go to sleep. Yeah, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for donating. The Bail Project, the support and love shown tonight has been so amazing. And yeah, that's it. Any words?
Just thank you so much. And let's keep this momentum going. Let's not let it slow down. Yeah, especially as today, a lot of people have sort of paused their activism with this like Blackout Tuesday. I think now it's really important that we just, as of tomorrow, we hit the ground running again and we keep going and we keep fighting for it and don't let this all go to waste. Like, let's keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. But that's it from us, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to end it here. Love you all. Love you, Jack. You'll probably get a text from me. You know what I'm like.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
And I'm going to end the live here. Peace out. Blessings. Everyone stay safe. And bye.
Bye.